to a PhD is very smooth. The challenges that most of our students faces in India is most of the things are not, they are not aware how to take the process is scattered. There is no smooth interlining. You do not know when to take up the examination and when you will have the interview at all or not. So the transition of the period from masters to PhD is very smooth. Understand that you are going to get a funding of 1 CR sitting in India only over a mail. There's only once there's going to be an interview at the end, and they're going to send a letter to you, your offer letter, and the entire funding opportunity. And with that letter, you are actually crossing the borders and going to other countries. So it's a very, very organized sector. The transition is very smooth. Lot of students have told us that, look, we want to do sort of PhD in some portfolio or in some specialization, but I'm not getting a guide. That is one of the other reasons. Abroad education most of the time are very flexible. If even if they can't fund you in the absolute topic that you're looking at, they will fund you in the parallel topic. They will fund you even if you are not as quite capable of doing a research from the immediate year. They will take you there on a coursework of masters, make you ready for 1 year, which is absolutely funded, and then from the second year onwards, you do a PhD, which is a great opportunity for Indian students as well. And obviously, when you are working in an international exposure, or where you're working with Americans or a German or let's say a Russian, your exposure to your subject, the kind of lab that you work into is much, much better, well equipped in terms of the facilities and infrastructure. And obviously, your transition again after that into a job or into a postdoc is again very smooth. So overall, it's a very good experience for Indian students. I can tell you in the last, for example, if there's anybody who's acquainted with how US Embassy works, this year US Embassy has taken a bigger space. They in Calcutta, the center, their embassy was in Ho Chi Minh Sarani, but now they have left that space and taken a bigger space because so many students are going to the US and they don't have enough space to accommodate them for interviewing, right? So that is the amount of students who are actually going abroad in different places, not just US. Okay, so overall it's a strong atmosphere now where most of the Indian students are going abroad, given that they know the process. Now some of the popular countries that you may look into, I will come to you for questions if you have anything else in mind, are these. Now let's understand why have we named these countries. Remember, you may have a certain topic of interest, you may like a certain country, but if the country is not funding you, I'm quite certain that you will not take up a PhD. It is not possible to go for a paid PhD for most of us. If somebody is going for a paid PhD, that means the student has the fund of 4 to 5 years for doing the PhD. We do not do paid PhD, we only do free tuition fee PhD. Okay, so the most popular country which does PhD abroad completely free and the funding is huge is US. Why is that? Of course, because US is a research based economy. They have 4,000 universities in the world, which is largest. If you look into Canada or a UK, they have 6 to 700 universities, whereas the funding opportunity is much higher in US. So if you are, most of the students are coming to us now with Europe, which is great, but we ask them to keep US as an option because the funding timing, the way Indian curriculum is sort of structured is very similar to US curriculum. So that way we match also. So your opportunity and your chances are higher. So when you are a student who's applying for a PhD, it is suggested that you don't get restricted to one country, but choose 2, 3 countries. Right now, coming to Germany and so on and so forth, it's great again for life sciences. Biotech is fantastic in Germany, but Europe functions in a very different way. And we give you a very realistic approach to how you should choose a country while taking up a PhD. Now, it is very important that you choose an English speaking country, because if your course and your program is sort of language specific. Let's say you want to go to France, but most courses are in French taught. You want to go to, let's say, you want to go to Italy, but it's Italian taught. Then you will have challenges, of course, right? So we help you to choose first option as English speaking country, and second option could be Europe, where it is language specific, but still you may as well get some funding chances there also. So Australia and all are popular for marine, for students who are coming from marine background, ecologists, or for that matter, for that matter, somebody who's working towards environment. Singapore very very rigid. Yet, if there's somebody we can work into that. New Zealand, we have not got funding so far. The other countries that you may look into is Sweden is doing very well for PhD, and Finland. So we'll talk more on detail on that. Okay. What is the ideal profile for a PhD? Now, these pointers are actually very generalized. It's very difficult to actually tell you that what the universities are looking at you, because you see they are funding you based on the documentation that you have to do. Your documentation has to be unique. Your research choices and why you are choosing a certain research has to be your individual story and not something which is borrowed or copied, obviously. So, the first criteria is your score. Now, how do we measure the score? I know that presidency sometimes goes up to a score of 9.5 as the highest. There could be difference in departments. So what they do is they measure your score based on the highest. So if the highest score is 9, a 7.57 or 8 is quite okay. So you need to measure your highest of the year and where is your score standing at. That's one of the bar. CGPA is very, very important for students who are actually taking up immediate PhD years. For example, I am in 2026, I'm passing out in 2026, and I'm going to fly in 2026. CGPA is very important. Or let's say I am in 2025, I'm passing out in 25, and I'm applying between 26 and 27. It's very important. So CGPA has 40% weightage in your application. The next is dissertation. I know that most of you have a dissertation. If you have a dissertation and a very strong CGPA, then if you're going in the immediate year, most of the time you do not need any publication or research practice or internship, so on and so forth. Needless to say that higher pointers are given to students who has one publication. Now, publication is important when you are giving year gaps. For example, I am passing out in 25 or 26, but I'm planning my PhD in 28 or 29. So the gap years has to be very, very relevant. You cannot digress from your choice of subject. I cannot choose to do a PhD if I am a life science student and suddenly I decide that I want to get into a job which is nothing to do with life science. So it is important that in the gap year, if you're giving a gap year, within the year of PhD and masters, it is important that you're associated with some lab or some project work relevant to doing a PhD. And if it's more than 3 years, if you have a publication, great. It does not stop you to get funding if you don't have one. Journal and article is important for the students who are from the humanities background, because you don't have lab work, so you may have a journal article. Again, if you have a gap year. And internship is relevant to specialization. If you're doing an internship, make sure it is nothing less than 3 months. Not like a 2 week internship, it is not granted, not like a 1 month, but minimum 3 months. So here, if you are giving a gap year, within that gap year, you have to do some internship. We always help you to get in touch with the university to understand what is their specific requirement. That will help you to understand whether at all you should be applying or not. Then the internship is not required. But before the final interview, which comes after 4 to 5 months after your application, within that time you need to take up your internship if you are giving a gap between your year of masters and your PhD application. So the next intake is 2026. 2025 is already over. The students are expecting their interview between January to March, and we are starting 2026 from Jan onwards. Additional certification project to add up the profile. So anything that you do that will make your profile stronger is great, but make sure your CGPA and dissertation is important, the first part. These are all the add-ons. Now look at the PhD tenure of each of these countries. We have named the popular ones because naming a country which does not fund you does not make sense. So we have named the popular country. If you look at it, you would see US has one additional year. Anybody here knows that why does US has a 4 year minimum PhD as opposed to other countries which is of 3 years? If you know, you can unmute yourself and answer me. So what US does is, see, when you are doing your masters, if you see our structure of education is theory. Most of us are doing just theory work. So how are you expected to be confirmed about a lab work or a research when you have not worked in a particular project? So the major reason why sometimes Indian students fall short of getting a PhD funding abroad in Europe is because we don't have hands-on training. This is where the role of US comes in. Because they have fun, what they do is if you're a good student, if you can specifically talk about your goal, PhD goals, and they see that yes, this is a definite student, they will make you do 1 year of coursework. That means two things. One is there are students who are not sure what to take up as a PhD, right? They have just done a dissertation on one topic and they don't know what to choose at all for their PhD. You can get a PhD, a 1 year funding, additional funding. You can do a lab rotation in that 1 year. And from the second year onwards, they do a PhD. Most of our students coming from presidency, in fact, all students, they have done a 1 year coursework. It is part of your curriculum. This is the only difference between US and Europe. Europe, the opportunities are there, but sometimes we fail to get funding, or I may say that it is not as the funding is not as huge as in US because they take you as an academic scholar. You are expected to do research in your topic while in the masters, and if you're giving a gap year, obviously teaching is not something that PhD gap can justify. Your lab work is very important. So I do understand that most of the student faces a lot of challenge getting a lab after they pass out from masters. So here again our role comes in. If since we do a lot of PhD application across India, you get once you work with us, we help you to choose labs where to go from our alumni, right? So again, coming back to the discussion, US is 4 years. For all the rest of the countries it is 3 years. Now it is only in US that you need a GRE and a TOEFL. We tell you why GRE and a TOEFL, will come to that. For the rest of the countries you can just do IELTS. Has anyone of you heard about TOEFL and IELTS before? Is there anyone who's heard about TOEFL and IELTS? I'm not on the screen. Somebody has blinked. So good. I'll tell you why you should do TOEFL and not IELTS in my next slide. So both are English proficiency test. Your question could be, why am I supposed to take this test? Because there are two components in your PhD. One is your tuition fee. The second component is your cost of accommodation, living. So in India, when you are getting your JRF, you get it because you are a domestic student and you are getting it by doing just your PhD study. When you are going abroad, you are going there as an international student. So you are expected to teach there to the bachelor students, one, or help your professor in the lab. Now even if we are the one of the largest English speaking country in the world, still our English is our second language, not the first language, right? So to prove your proficiency in English and the assistantship that you get for teaching is dependent on the score you get in IELTS or TOEFL. Now for PhD we tell you TOEFL because TOEFL is academic English. Okay, IELTS is more generic. It is, we recommend you IELTS when you are doing a bachelor or a master. Now if somebody is already coming to me with an IELTS score, great, but your score has to be minimum 7.5. And there will be universities who will only ask for your TOEFL score. So here, when we are suggesting you a course, suggesting you sort of which one to take go ahead with, it is dependent on the more probable ones, which will give you more opportunity. So if since the funding is higher in US and lesser in Europe, and TOEFL is a test which is of US, we tell you that you can submit your TOEFL score in any university, given that you know what score to submit. But if you submit your IELTS score, there are chances that they will ask for your additional TOEFL score. So we tell you to take up TOEFL only so that you don't have to bother. TOEFL is accepted around the world and it is only applicable for PhD students. Now both have same sections. The total score of IELTS is 9 and the total score of 120. It is just the difference of marks. On IELTS is more of obviously taken by European countries. TOEFL is more for US, Singapore, but nonetheless, it's globally accepted now. So you will not face any hindrance. And the score validity of 2 years. Both the exams have multiple dates in India and in your city. There are 4-5 dates here. As and when you are ready, you take up the TOEFL examination. So for a PhD student, we will tell you what is the timeline that you should follow for 2026, right? Now GRE is not recommended to students who are coming from non-STEM background. Non-STEM means humanities largely. But if your course, if your subject has a component of math or science, you are expected to take up a GRE. Will you be getting funding without a GRE? My answer is yes. But understand that you are asking for fund, right? And you are not paying for it. So when you are asking for fund, it is very important that your choices of university becomes more elaborate than the other ones. This year, most of the fundings have come that has come to us for PhD are without GRE, but it largely depends when you are applying, right? So let's say you are sort of going for 2026 and you start your application process from say Jan Feb 25 onwards. We have already started with it, right? Then the shortlisting that we will be giving you will be the ones which are without GRE. You can go ahead without GRE. But the moment you are pushing it from say June onwards, then since PhD application is like a job, the seats will be confirmed by the non-GRE universities and the ones with GRE will be open. That's when you will have to take up a GRE. So for PhD, remember timeline is very important when you are starting the process. And if you're only going to US, which we tell you that keep it as an option because structurally you are at a benefit based on the structure that we do. Rest of the countries, why not? But only in US that you need a GRE, and for the rest you don't. It is a skill-based test. It is not a knowledge-based exam. India, all the studies that we do are knowledge-based, but these are skill-based. We keep doing demos for GRE and TOEFL. If you're interested, please ask my colleague Shovik to make you sit for a demo session because the question answer pattern of both GRE, IELTS, TOEFL are all 9-10 level. But the moment you will go and start answering them, you will have hindrances in terms of speed. So these are all speed-based examination, and we teach you how to take up the examination at a certain speed, right? This total score is 340, and the score is valid for 5 years. And it is applicable for people who wants to take up a master or a PhD in the US, right? What are the factors that actually ensure that you will get a funding? My experience is the first thing is the timeline. And here I keep giving an example of two presidency students that has come in 2022, I believe. So one started, one was probably the second topper, and the other one was in the fifth or the sixth rank, right? For privacy, we are not naming the student. So the one which was relatively lower score started the process from March onwards, right? He started networking. Networking means we help you to connect with your professors who are working in your field and the chosen university to understand if they have funding or not, and even if they have funding, how they are choosing you as a student, whether at all they are choosing you for giving funding or not, right? So that is networking. So he started networking from the time April of the previous year, and the other boy came into us in the month of August, so we did not really have a lot of time to send a lot of list to the student. So at a given time, if you give us time, we can make you speak to 150, 200 professors, but if you don't give us time, it can go down to 20 or 30. Now, even though he was a better student and more probably eligible, the second one did not get the fund because of the time, and but the first one did. So PhD is really all about time. If you do not know what your professors are telling you about your profile, when will you have the time to work it out? Right? And it is not like an Indian structure where you don't know anything how to go about it or you're rejected. It's a beautiful process of inclusion. Your guide is happy to tell you that your profile looks great to me, but then I need certain inclusions. So if you give it 7 8 months time, you can work it out on those and go in the immediate year, or you then choose the following year, right? Coursework and project is only important for those who are giving gap years. If you are going in the immediate year, previously in the year of 2021, which was the time of Corona, most of the presidency students have gone in the immediate year. And you can actually start networking from year one, master's year one. The ones who are very focused and they know that I want to do a PhD, they actually start from year one of their masters, the first year. Now your question could be, what am I supposed to show in my first year? I have nothing apart from my one semester score. The universities are they know that you do not have one. What they want to see is your PhD determination, your basic knowledge, and your PhD goal, your research goal. If you can define that well, there are so many students of PhD who actually gets their offer letter even before they've passed out their masters. And if you are studying in India, we tell you to give less gap years because here getting an internship is a challenge. So lesser it is, better for you. Letter of recommendation is very important. Who is your recommender? What is the, is he an international alumni? What kind of exposure he has in your subject? Has he attended any conference? These are the things which are important. Nonetheless, you can always take your recommendation from your immediate guide if you're working, or your HOD. GRE TOEFL score has only got 10% weightage. Your funding can only stop if you are not getting the minimum score. Because you're going on a 100% scholarship, they give you the minimum score to sort of qualify the GRE and TOEFL. These are not the exam which has pass score or a fail score. Okay, they give you the minimum score. That's all you're supposed to score. It doesn't mean that if you go for a very high score, you will get fund. No, your funding will be justified by your experience in the subject, your goal of research, right? Networking mean, like I said, faster you start, better it is. If you are starting your networking from January, February, we help you to network with minimum 200 professors. Depends from subject to subject, of course, the kind of opportunity that and the funding a life science student will have. Obviously there'll be limitation if somebody is coming from a political science or an English background, because university option reduces, right? So it depends, but again, like I said, earlier you start, better it is. Personal statement is something called the SOP. I'm sure you've heard of it, the ones who are planning to go abroad. It is actually a motivation letter which tells you why at all you're choosing abroad. So remember, when you're choosing a PhD abroad, you have to have your own uniqueness for your application. It's not like a master application where you are paying for the course. The university is paying you 1 CR fund. With that, they are paying you about $30,000, let's say, for a stipend of the entire year. So your application has to be very unique. It has to be your story. It cannot be a borrowed story or a copied story, right? You have to be very sure, why am I choosing this subject? And talk about it openly in the interview, right? It's not like the interview that you face in India where it's a question answer round. I would say it is more of a discussion. You are expected to ask questions and judge your guide, because he's the person who's going to take you for the next 4 years, right? So they never call it an interview, but they call it a face to face discussion per se, right? So it's very, very different from what we do, like a question answer round or a process of exclusion in our country, right? So what happens is, so I can set the timeline for 26. Let's say somebody started networking now. Your application timeline starts from end of next year. So it starts from November 1st of 25. From January to October, you are just supposed to talk to as many universities as possible. Based on their deadlines, you're supposed to do your GRE or your TOEFL and set your application. You apply between November and December this year. 26 January to March, you will get your interviews. If you have got a call from interview, you can expect 99% you've got the fund. It's just 1% that remains. This year, the interview was very unique. They were checking body language. They were doing a lot of psychological understanding of how you are as a person apart from the other subject related interview. So there were one, two more rounds added to that. Okay. So like I said, it has to be the student has to be very, very dynamic, approachable, second, and third is knowing the subject well. These three are important that influences your decision, right? And of course, we are one of the experts for PhD, doing PhD application globally. The mentors who helps you to apply our PhD themselves from abroad, and we take you through the entire process from your networking till your visa. Your cost of application of going abroad, your question could be, a lot of student comes and tells us, oh, going PhD doing abroad is very expensive, how am I supposed to pay for your living? My answer to them is, your cost is zero. You will not get a visa if you do not get fund. So university offer letter has nothing to do with your visa application. Your visa application means they will see how much you can sustain there. None of our students have gone so far without a stipend. You will not even get the visa approval. Okay, so your PhD abroad is largely no cost. Needless to say that you have to be a good student. We have set a timeline for 2026 because 25 is already over. This is the timeline. You should right away start with GRE TOEFL. All this examination takes a little bit of time because we are not used to answering the questions, the techniques that they apply. You should start networking with your professors no later than March, because we have seen the ones who starts early, they get more than 5 fundings. Can you imagine, once year fund 5 universities willing to give you, and you are actually choosing? And that has happened to one of our students from life sciences. I will take his name. His name is Shunangan. He's one of our brightest student who came in the year of 2021. He started his GRE from December of the previous year. He had no idea of that in abroad you get 100% funding. He was a first year student, and he was like, if I'm a first year student, how am I supposed to get fund? I don't even have anything, neither a dissertation nor a score. I said, you apply. And by the time it was 2022 mid, he got 5 offer letters. Right now, he's one of the brightest students sitting in Indiana, Bloomington, and we are planning to do a big session with him in the coming years with all the students of presidents in this campus and biotech, right? Of course, needless to say that we have already a student coming in from the biotech department. We will do a session with him. He's already in India because this is the time that they come in January onwards. So these examination takes a lot of time, networking takes time. You will take a lot of time to understand the process. It's a very different process. It's a mailing process. you cannot imagine that by mail somebody is giving you 1 CR fund, right? Here we knock the doors, but still nobody's interested in talking to us, right? So it's a very, very systematic approach when you're doing a PhD. Everything, your networking, exam, everything should be set by August and September. You should be able to apply with all your documentation and shortlisting by November 1st. So if you are interested for PhD, your timeline is actually starting now. And remember, with passing years, the competition is more because more people are aware that abroad there are PhD. So the professors are also facing challenges in terms of choosing whom to choose. So faster you apply, better it is, right? I have some applications and offer letters of some of our students. This is somebody from Baligan Science College going to Miami University. This is somebody from physics. I'm not sure if you can see because the screen is. Anyway, if you visit our centers, I'll be able to completely show you. This is the letter that you need to do a visa. Now, again, in the letter, you come to the part of the first, second, third, fourth section, which says financials. In the finance sector, please check that most of the everything is paid by the university, even your medical expenses. Okay, and how much the student has got for 12 months. Once you get this letter, you show this letter to the embassy during an interview, and that's when they give you the visa. So you see, your tuition fee is paid, your living expenses is paid, expenses of dependents obviously no because you are going as a student. Graduate assistantship package value on your left is mentioned. Everything is mentioned there. So without this letter, you anyway can't go, and it's called the F1. So what we do is we help students to go abroad on free education from your bachelor's, master's, and PhD. All our trainers are certified to take up your classes for GRE and other programs like SAT, IELTS, TOFL. We keep having demos. Please sit on one of them to understand what it is. All our mentors who will help you to apply for PhD abroad are having abroad degrees to do that. Our classes are both online and offline. More details you will get from Shovik. And all our classes are 1 year valid. Whatever you do, it is valid for 1 year. And you can do as many classes, as many recommendations as required within that 1 year. So what we have to say is we really can't change your GPA or your additional curriculum, but what we can do is we can help you to create a fantastic application with a great GRE and a TOEFL score and help you to find your research opportunity abroad by creating an impactful application. These are the steps that we follow from profiling, test preparation, shortlisting, editing of your essays, application, interview preparation, visa application and interview preparation. And after that, where will you go? We help you to book your accommodation because once you get your your visa, the university itself puts you in a group where you will be associated with other students who are also doing getting PhD to get your rental. So everything is decided from here. You are not lost in the country once you reach there. It does not work like that. They are they have to be sure that you are everything is mentioned, and that's when you leave the country. Otherwise, you never leave the country. You cannot leave the country, right? These are one of our bright alumni of presidency. We have more, but for that you have to come to our center and talk in detail. So the stipend that you get varies between, I would say, $22,000 to $45,000. So far, our highest stipend is 42,000 that we got for one of our students in cancer biology. This student was actually the topper of presidency biotech, and she has recently she's done the application with us. She's in sunny Buffalo, New York, and she has received an award from sunny Buffalo for being the best student of the first semester. So we will share all the information with you once she shares the pictures. This I remember Rajlekha because she's also from Life Sciences Presidency. She came at the very end and she was very bright. She networked with three university, only three. She did not have the time. She said, "I'm going to drop my year and next year I will try. I'm not sure you." But I said, "Still try. Let's give it a shot." She networked with three university and with North Carolina she got one, and she just left. I don't know if any of you know her. She left this year itself, fall 24, September. All right, these are master admit, but from different subject. So the next GRE batch is starting from 5th of Jan. Discuss more on this with Shovik if you're interested or planning to have a discussion. TOFL is again on the 5th of Jan. Most of it outstanding on the 5th of Jan. IELTS batches, all these discussions you can have with Shovik and have a sort of, you can come over to a center which is in Tollygunge in Calcutta, and you're most welcome to drop me a message if you're willing to have a chat, or just book a schedule with Shovik and we can have a chat in the center. That remains to be my phone number and mail ID. I hope I've been able to give you the basic information that is required for you to understand PhD. Um, it's not quite possible to talk absolutely in detail because it's quite an elaborate process, because the university is paying you. More detailed discussion is required. If there's any question that you want to ask in this forum, you may. Otherwise, we can always do a one-on-one, right? If there's any question, please, you can sort of raise your hand, unmute yourself and ask, or you can put up in the chat box.
Yes, with Ujjaini Kaur, please ask your question with your department and which year of masters. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, ma'am and sir. So, my department is economics, and I will pass out in 2026. So, my question is regarding the admission to universities in Europe, and to be precise, Germany, because that is where I wish to go for higher studies.
Okay.
So actually, when you were talking about Germany, I think there was some problem with the internet on my side, and I had got disconnected. So can you please repeat? I think in very briefly, if you can. I mean,
See,
what's the
not
requirement for
specifically to
exams and
Germany.
stuff?
Right, I got your question. Not specific to Germany. I'll tell you how Europe looks at it. First of all, if you're
Okay, okay,
planning
ma'am.
to go to Europe, um, we have sent 2 3 students this year in Germany in Max Planck. The challenge with these countries are most of it are language taught. Okay, the moment
Okay,
you are looking for an English taught program, you are actually from 100 courses, you are looking at 30 courses because most of them will be their language taught. Europe looks at your
okay,
profile very differently. two, three things that they need. One is very high research work. Now, when it comes to economics, I'm assuming that you would need some research or project in data analysis or something related to statistics. Just with
Yes, ma'am.
when you're passing out in 2026, immediately if you're looking for fund in Europe, your chances could be slim, but I'm not discouraging you. If your question is I'm going to go to PhD and I'm looking for a place in fund, then I would say do Germany and US. But if you're absolutely
Okay.
specific to Europe, then start your IELTS and TOEFL, apply, do the networking. We can help you with the networking and let them respond to you. What else are they looking at apart from your score? Because it's a little specific.
Okay, ma'am. So how soon do I start applying for these and
For
uh,
you're going for 26,
yes, ma'am.
you're going for 26. Start your TOEFL now. Take 2 3 months of time. Go ahead with your preparation. So you may start your networking process from March onwards.
Okay. Okay, ma'am.
And your professor will sometimes, so Europe also publishes their vacancy because it's more like a job, and the other process is networking. So we will help you to network with the professors of different public universities to understand what specific question portfolio that they are looking at, and you can work on it in between and then apply in the deadline that's starting from November.
Okay, ma'am. So TOEFL is more important. I mean, and GRE and
More
I.
important, it is one of the things that you need.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. GRE, not right now. Just do TOEFL. Go ahead with it. Network with your university. If they ask you for a GRE score, then only take up a GRE, or else at this moment, not required.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks. Is there any other question that I may answer? I assume there's no question. Nonetheless, we will get in touch with you one on one. If there's any information that you need, I'm putting up my phone number here for you to send me a text or have any information of, or if you want to do a one-on-one session or come over. Thank you so much for the session, for allowing us again to do it on a Sunday, and I hope to see you soon again for more discussions. Right? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, students of President's University. Thanks for having you on board for the session, and hope it was very beneficial and helpful to all of you. Please get back to me. All of you have my number also. I shared it once, and in case that's my WhatsApp number also. If you want to have a chat with me, please get back to me. And we are open all the 7 days of the week from Monday to Sunday, and 10:30 to 7 p.m. in the evening. Okay, so feel free to come down, walk into our center. Our address, I think I've sent it always, and also in the slide which you have noted. And every week we conduct a GRE and a TOEFL demo. So let me know who are all interested by paying me. Then we can schedule it according to your convenient time. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.